gavel strikes wood. Sold. 50 feet away, a violin swells into a delicate French waltz. The year is 1820. You are standing in the opulent lobby of a luxury hotel, watching human beings being traded for the price of a carriage, while the wealthiest men in North America sip imported champagne in the exact same room. Welcome to New Orleans. The smell hits you the moment you step out of the grand doors and onto the muddy street. It is a suffocating, overwhelming mix of frying catfish, raw river mud, burning sugarcane, and something deeply unsettling underneath it all. A heavy, sweet, slightly rotten odor, like exotic fruit left to bake in the subtropical sun. This is the unmistakable scent of a city built directly on top of a swamp. A metropolis that is physically sinking into the earth, even as its unimaginable wealth rises to rival the greatest capitals of Europe. You hear a chaotic symphony, not from a grand concert hall, but spilling out from the humid, shadowed alleys. A crude fiddle, the rhythmic, primal pounding of a skin drum. A woman singing a melody in a language you cannot identify. It isn't English. It isn't French. It is Creole. A linguistic child born from the brutal, beautiful collision of French, West African, Spanish, and Caribbean bloodlines. This is New Orleans in the early 19th century. We've used AI trained on historical records, period maps, and first-hand accounts to rebuild the real city. Forget the Mardi Gras cliches. Forget the sanitized Bourbon Street tourist traps. We are taking you back 206 years to witness a place that was simultaneously the richest, most cultured, most diverse, and most unimaginably cruel city in the Americas. A place where the dead float and the living dance on their graves. But here is the question that defies all logic. Why did the world's elite eagerly flock to build their empires in a sinking, disease-ridden city that quite literally smelled like rot? Dawn breaks. You open your eyes in a room framed by tall, heavy shuttered windows. You are standing in the heart of the Vieux Carré, the old square. Today, millions of tourists blindly wander these streets, snapping photos of what they mistakenly call the French Quarter. But look closer. Run your hand along the thick, damp plaster of the buildings. There is a massive historical lie hiding in plain sight. Almost nothing you see here is actually French. Why? Because the original French colonial city was obliterated. Not by war, but by fire. In 1788, on Good Friday, a single candle in a military treasurer's home ignited a catastrophic blaze that devoured over 800 buildings in a matter of hours. 6 years later, in 1794, just as the traumatized residents were finally rebuilding, another massive fire struck. The original French wooden architecture, with its highly flammable roofs and close quarters, was completely turned to ash. What rose from those smoking ruins was born of sheer necessity and Spanish decree. It's a forgotten fact that Spain, not France, controlled New Orleans from 1763 to 1800. After the fires, the Spanish governor mandated a strict new building code to fireproof the city. That is when the thick brick walls, coated in fire-resistant stucco, appeared. That is when the iconic, intricate wrought iron balconies and secluded, lush interior courtyards were built. These weren't just aesthetic choices. They were brilliant survival mechanisms. The thick walls absorbed the moisture, while the shaded courtyards with their fountains trapped cool air. This created a much-needed oasis against the suffocating Louisiana summer. A relentless 95-degree heat with humidity so thick you could practically chew it. The entire rhythm of life in 1820 is dictated by this brutal climate. Work happens at dawn. By midday, the shutters are bolted shut, and the city retreats into the shadows of these Spanish fortresses. The physical city had been rebuilt stronger, walled off from the flames and the unbearable sun. But a new kind of fire was already brewing inside those walls. By 1820, this wasn't just one unified city hiding behind Spanish stucco. It was a deeply fractured metropolis. Think about it. What secrets are really hidden behind these thick walls that survived the Great Fires? And, more importantly, can a city survive when its residents are divided into three completely hostile factions who refuse to even speak the same language? Walk just a few blocks upriver from the old square. The wrought iron vanishes. The French language fades. The architecture morphs from intimate Spanish courtyards to stark, practical, red brick townhouses. You haven't left New Orleans, but you have just crossed an invisible border into an entirely different universe. The most crucial thing to understand about New Orleans in 1820 is that it is not one city. It is three separate, deeply hostile worlds forced to share the same swamp. World number 1. The Vieux Carré, the Creole city. These are the original families, descendants of French and Spanish colonists who have ruled this land for a century. They speak French, worship at the Grand St. Louis Cathedral, and consider themselves the rightful aristocratic heirs to the Delta. To them, outsiders are simply uncultured barbarians. World number 2. Faubourg St. Mary, the American sector. When the United States purchased Louisiana in 1803, a tidal wave of Anglo-Americans flooded down the Mississippi River to claim their piece of the pie. They are Protestant, English-speaking, and ruthlessly capitalistic. The old Creole families want absolutely nothing to do with them. The Americans resent them right back. The rivalry between these two factions is toxic. It bleeds into business, politics, and frequent bloody street duels. To keep the city from tearing itself apart, they literally split it in half. They used Canal Street, a massive, sprawling boulevard, not just as a road, but as a physical buffer zone, a neutral ground. Creoles stayed on one side, Americans stayed on the other. They lived side by side, yet light years apart. But it is the Third World that makes 1820 New Orleans unlike anywhere else on the planet. There is a third city operating right in the middle of this cultural standoff, a massive demographic anomaly that absolutely paralyzed the new American arrivals with fear, confusion, and outrage, a community that challenged the very foundation of American law. How did a nation built entirely on the rigid laws of slavery suddenly find itself governing a booming, wealthy, and heavily armed population of free black elites? To understand how New Orleans became the freest place for black people in a nation built on chains, you have to look at the law. Before the Americans arrived, the city was governed by the French Code Noir and later Spanish colonial regulations. Unlike American law, which viewed race as a rigid, inescapable binary, you were either entirely free and white or entirely enslaved and black, the French and Spanish systems had loopholes. Under these older laws, enslaved people could legally negotiate and purchase their own freedom. White fathers could, and frequently did, emancipate their mixed-race children. Over a century, this created a formidable new demographic. The gens de couleur libre, the free people of color. By 1820, there are nearly 7,000 of them living in the city, and they aren't just surviving, many are thriving. They are highly skilled artisans, architects, property owners, and wealthy merchants. Some even own slaves themselves. A deeply uncomfortable historical reality that completely shatters the simplified narratives we are usually taught in school. Imagine being an American merchant from Virginia, stepping off a steamboat in 1820 and seeing a black man walking down the street in a tailored European suit, legally carrying a sword and conducting high-level business in fluent French. It absolutely broke their minds. A wealthy, educated, free, black middle class contradicted everything the American slave economy relied upon. The Americans immediately began aggressively passing laws to strip away their rights. But in 1820, the old Creole system is still holding the line. This creates the ultimate American paradox. New Orleans is the largest, most brutal slave market in the country. Yet, it is simultaneously the freest place for a black person to live in the United States. These three divided worlds, the resentful Creoles, the aggressive Americans, and the powerful free people of color, hated each other. Yet, every single morning they were forced to violently smash together in one specific place, down by the river. Because when it comes to survival, commerce, and hunger, all boundaries vanish. And it begs the bizarre question, is it possible that a simple bowl of soup prevented a cultural civil war? Morning, the riverfront. Welcome to the French market. If the rest of the city is strictly divided by walls and laws, it is united by hunger. Here, in the sprawling, chaotic commercial heart of New Orleans, the rigid social order completely collapses into a sensory explosion. Listen to the noise. It is absolutely deafening. Vendors are screaming over each other. The languages swirl together in a dizzying, aggressive tornado. French, English, Spanish, Choctaw, various West African dialects, and Creole. Look at the colors. Mountains of vibrant tropical fruits, squawking live chickens in wooden cages, massive piles of fresh river crawfish clacking their claws, burlap sacks overflowing with green coffee beans, raw sugar, and fiery Caribbean spices. In this muddy bazaar, enslaved people bargain aggressively alongside wealthy free women of color. A Choctaw woman sells fillet powder, ground sassafras leaves, right next to a German butcher slicing thick sausages, while a Caribbean refugee offers sweet melting pralines. This absolute chaos is the crucible of something magnificent. Because out of this forced mingling of cultures, New Orleans in 1820 is actively inventing a cuisine that will become legendary. Look closely at a boiling bowl of gumbo. It is not just a soup, it is a literal, edible metaphor for the city itself. No single culture could have invented it alone. It requires the West African okra. It requires the French technique of the dark roux. It needs the indigenous Choctaw filet powder. It demands the Spanish sausage and the local Gulf shellfish. Smashed together in an iron pot, these conflicting elements create a masterpiece. It is a beautiful, intoxicating scene. The smell of fresh, dark-roasted chicory coffee fills the humid air. But do not let the rich scent of spices blind you. Because all this abundance, all this wealth, all the sugar in the coffee, it all requires an ocean of blood to produce. And just a few streets away from this bustling market, the true dark engine of the city is firing up for the day. Midday, the heat peaks, and the dark heart of the city reveals itself. For all its staggering beauty, for all its revolutionary cuisine and rich culture, 1820 New Orleans runs on one thing: human flesh. New Orleans is the largest and most ruthless slave market in North America. But what shocks visitors the most isn't just the scale of it. It's the sheer, casual visibility. The slave trade here is not hidden away in dark alleys or secret docks. It is a highly formalized central feature of daily commerce. Enslaved people are bought and sold in public auctions, held right in the opulent lobbies of the city's finest hotels. Imagine businessmen smoking fine cigars, sipping imported cognac, and casually bidding on human lives under crystal chandeliers. There are dedicated, heavily fortified slave pens lining Chartres and Esplanade streets, sitting comfortably next to high-end boutiques. The destination for many of these souls is the sugar plantations upriver. Producing sugar in the Louisiana heat is backbreaking, horrifically dangerous, and routinely fatal. The life expectancy of an enslaved person sent to the sugar fields is brutally short. By 1820, roughly 40% of the entire New Orleans population is enslaved. When you add the free people of color, the white population is actually a nervous minority. And this demographic reality breeds a deep, suffocating paranoia. The white planter class lives in constant, terrifying anxiety of rebellion, and their fear is completely justified. The memory of the 1811 German Coast Uprising, the largest slave revolt in American history, still haunts their nightmares. Over 200 enslaved men had marched on New Orleans, armed with cane knives and axes. The rebellion was crushed with extreme theatrical violence. The severed heads of the executed rebels were displayed on wooden stakes along the river road for miles, a gruesome, rotting warning. Yet, despite the terror, despite the crack of the whip and the threat of the stake, the enslaved people of New Orleans found a way to fight back. Not with axes, but with something far more powerful, something that would eventually conquer the entire globe. Afternoon Sunday. For 6 days a week, the enslaved population of New Orleans is subjected to unimaginable physical and psychological brutality. But on the seventh day, the city law permits something that exists absolutely nowhere else in the United States. Walk with me to the edge of the Vieux Carré, to a dusty, open field shaded by massive, moss-draped live oak trees. You can feel the vibration in the ground long before you hear the sound. A deep, relentless, syncopated thump. This is Congo Square. Hundreds of enslaved and free black men and women are gathering. They are not here to perform for white audiences. They are here to remember who they are. Listen to the music, the heavy pounding of the bamboula drum, the rhythmic scraping of animal jawbones, the hypnotic, swirling chants sung in native Senegalese, Yoruba, and Dahomey languages. They form massive circles performing the ring shout, a sacred, ecstatic dance of their ancestors. In the rest of the American South, English Protestant slave owners explicitly banned the drum. They understood that drums were not just musical instruments. They were powerful tools of communication, of rebellion, and of unity. But here, under the slightly looser French Catholic traditions, the drums were permitted for just a few hours on Sunday afternoons. And in those few hours, in that one dusty field, the foundation of modern global culture was laid. This was not just a weekly party. This was a desperate, magnificent act of cultural preservation. Every single beat played in Congo Square was a profound act of defiance against a system designed to completely erase their humanity. The rhythmic DNA forged in this exact spot, the complex polyrhythms, the call and response, the improvisation, did not stay in New Orleans. It evolved. It gave birth to jazz, to the blues, to R&B, funk, rock and roll, and eventually modern hip-hop. Without this one patch of dirt, modern music as we know it simply would not exist. But as the sun sets and the primal drums of Congo Square fade into the humid night, a very different kind of music begins to echo through the streets. A refined, elegant European waltz. Because as night falls, the most complicated and controversial social institution in New Orleans opens its doors. The sun sets, and New Orleans puts on a different mask. It transforms from a sweaty, brutal port town into the undisputed cultural capital of the Americas. The lamps along Orleans Street flicker to life. Inside the magnificent Théâtre d'Orléans, the elite sit in velvet boxes, watching the finest European operas, often premiering here long before New York or Boston ever hear a single note. It is a staggering display of wealth and high art, but the most intense drama of New Orleans society isn't happening on the opera stage. It is unfolding just a few blocks away, inside exclusive, beautifully decorated ballrooms. Welcome to the Quadroon Balls. These are formal, invitation-only dances with a very specific and deeply controversial purpose. Here, free women of color, specifically young women of mixed race, known in the cruel fractions of the era as quadroons or octoroons, are elegantly presented to wealthy, aristocratic white men. They are not here to find husbands. Interracial marriage is strictly illegal. They are here to negotiate plaçage. Plaçage was a highly formalized, extra-legal system of concubinage. A white man would select a young woman and negotiate a contract directly with her mother. If an agreement was reached, he was required to provide her with a fully furnished house, ongoing financial support, and guaranteed education for any children they produced together. It is a system that forces us to face deeply uncomfortable historical realities. Was plaçage the ultimate expression of exploitation in a racist, patriarchal society that viewed women of color as exotic commodities? Or was it a calculated, brilliant survival strategy? A way for black families to legally extract wealth, property, and generational security from white men who held all the legal power. The unsettling truth is that it was both. It was a golden cage. But no amount of gold, property, or elegant waltzing could protect anyone from the true ruler of New Orleans. Because as the elite danced the night away, a silent, microscopic killer was quietly breeding in the stagnant swamp water, preparing to wipe them all out. Night falls completely over the Vieux Carré. The air cools slightly, but the heavy humidity remains, thick and suffocating. And with the dark comes the true apex predator of New Orleans. A microscopic killer that nobody in 1820 understands, carried quietly on the wings of millions of mosquitoes. Yellow fever, the dark angel of the Delta. Every single summer, the entire city holds its breath as the epidemic season begins. The disease strikes with terrifying speed. It turns the skin a ghastly yellow, induces raging, hallucinatory fevers, and ends in a horrific, fatal stage. It kills hundreds, sometimes thousands, in a matter of weeks. The wealthy Creoles who have lived here for generations and acquired childhood immunity casually dismiss it as the stranger's disease. And they are horribly right. It absolutely massacres the new arrivals. The influx of eager Americans, Irish, and German immigrants die at catastrophic, apocalyptic rates. Entire neighborhoods of newcomers are completely wiped off the map in a single, brutal August. Because medical science in 1820 is practically medieval, people blindly blame the miasma, the supposedly toxic, foul air rising from the surrounding swamps. In a desperate, futile attempt to purify the atmosphere, they fire cannons into the empty sky and burn massive vats of black tar in the streets. The city literally chokes on thick, oily smoke, but the dying only accelerates. And then, the city faces a horrifying logistical nightmare. What do you do with all the bodies? You cannot bury a corpse in the ground in New Orleans. The city sits on a sponge. The water table is so astonishingly high that if you dig a grave, it immediately fills with muddy water. If you bury a wooden coffin, the very next heavy rainstorm will violently push it right back to the surface. It is a grotesque reality. In New Orleans, the dead refused to stay buried. The only solution was to build upward. The city begins entombing its dead in elaborate, whitewashed, above-ground stone vaults. These massive cemeteries quickly grow into sprawling, eerie labyrinths of marble, iron, and brick. They are miniature neighborhoods built strictly for corpses, the legendary cities of the dead, some of the most haunting, beautiful, and terrifying places in America. But as the stone tombs fill to the brim and the living continue to blindly dance on the edge of oblivion, a much larger, older force is silently watching from the city's edge. a massive, brown, terrifying force that gave New Orleans its life and is patiently waiting to drown it all. Look past the whitewashed tombs. Look past the spires of the cathedral and the intricate iron balconies. At the very edge of this impossible city flows the Mississippi River. It is a mile wide at this point, dark and brown, choked with the sediment of half a continent. Everything in New Orleans, the unimaginable wealth, the brutal slave trade, the vibrant people, the revolutionary food, the hypnotic music, and the devastating disease. Every single thing flows directly from that river. The river made this city, and as history will continually prove, the river will eventually try to destroy it. But tonight, in the suffocating heat of 1820, New Orleans is fiercely alive. It is messy, violent, breathtakingly beautiful, deeply corrupt, wildly creative, and absolutely unlike any other place on Earth. It is a city where 3 languages fiercely compete on every street corner, where elegant European opera plays just 2 blocks away from horrifying human auctions, where the cuisine is a profound act of human genius, and the mosquitoes act as the grim reaper, where the dead float and the living dance with a desperate, defiant joy. There had never been an American city like this, and there never will be again. Pause. Thank you for stepping back into 1820 with us. If you survived this journey through the real, unfiltered New Orleans, hit that subscribe button right now to join our next historical reconstruction. We have so many more lost worlds to explore. Drop a comment below. What city or era should we uncover next? Until then, keep looking at the past.